So I think there are two types of freelancer business owners. There's those that have the entrepreneurial spirit from the get-go and just really want to do something. And then there's those that just fall into it because they have either got little choice or it's just circumstantial. And for me, I probably would say I was the latter because there was an opportunity a few years ago to go freelance and I shied away from it. It wasn't the right time for me. And that time came again a bit later on. So my career had been in marketing from my early 20s and I've been through company to company. And the last company I worked for, I had my children there and it was brilliant, brilliant place to work. But really after going through my second, having my second child, I was like, I don't really want to go and do a job that wasn't sort of giving me what I wanted. I'm going to leave my child to go to a job. It needed to be worth it. And it was just becoming less and less worth it. So whilst I was kind of doing the job, I started to mull around some ideas of what I could do freelance or do for myself. And really, there was just one day when I just made that decision that it was the time and had some stuff in the background. I had a Facebook page, a bit of a brand, you sort of like throw a few things together. And I got an inquiry from a friend of the family, and you just go, sink or swim. It's time to do it. So I did, and I haven't looked back really. It was just a case of it needed to happen. I needed to move on to the next stage and have a new challenge. So, and back then when I started it, the part-time world wasn't really a thing. Working from home wasn't a thing. And having two small children, that was really important to me as well. So yeah, it was this or bust really. Oh, in the first 12 months of the business, it was COVID. It hit me like, everyone it hit everyone. But I started the Design Grove in June 2019 and I was just getting my feet. I just landed a really cool client. I was really proud of myself, pleased with myself. And then boom, March 2020, all the big companies that I'd been working with shut up shop, didn't they? And just started to furlough everybody and close the doors. So all of a sudden I was thinking, what am I going to do? Because the government didn't support you in that first year. So there was no financial support for me at all. And I mean, I was massively fortunate that my husband still worked and he had a job that paid that was good for us. But I had to figure out what I was going to do next because all of a sudden the bigger businesses that I wanted to work for weren't there. So how I came over that was basically joining networks, and I joined an amazing network that was full of my kind of people and freelancer types, and realized really that there was an opportunity there for startups and to support startups. So for a little bit, I went down that road and supported the smaller businesses. And then when things became normal again and came back online with the bigger ones, I almost found myself with two business streams. And it was a challenge actually to try and juggle the two because they're very different. And but I, eventually managed to blend them and to what I have today, which is a good mix of things, really. Have evolved, I think, massively. Um, when I kind of went into this not really having a clear plan of what I was going to do, I was just going to sell my abilities to people effectively. And the clients that I've been working with have changed the most. So I would say, starting from originally being with SMEs, like larger manufacturing organizations, then COVID making me go down the freelancer route, opening my mind to lots of different things that I could do with those, and then reverting back to the larger businesses. I found myself in times where I've been a real busy fool. I've been taking on work left, right, and centre, but not really doing the work that I really love. And that's been the main thing that I've seen over the last 6 years, really. And just making the smart choices to say, you can say no to some things if it's not going to sit with you, but I don't think you really know what you like to do until you've done it and you go, not really fond of that. I won't do that again. So I think the types of clients that I'm working with, I've refined over the years to the ones that I have today, which are different kettle of fish to what were 6 years ago. So that would be probably the biggest change as I've gone through the years. Yeah. I mean, I could always do better at time management myself. It's not a strong point of mine. However, there are a couple of things. So, I had a fabulous business coach that was a specialist in time management and taught me about the Pomodoro technique. Now, this is an absolute game changer when you have those creativity lulls where you're looking at a blank screen and you don't know how to get going. Breaking it down into 25 minutes and having a 5 minute break. I've done that and fallen back on that so many times, and it really does work because you kind of then go, oh, I've gone over 30 minutes, and you've just got your flow and you're in it. And as a creative person, that's really important to getting going. So Pomodoro is definitely something that I would fall back on. The other thing is my Asana board. I came across the Asana app and I love Asana. It works for me better than any other of these types of things. Um, when you've got multiple clients and client projects going on at once, having somewhere that collected all my tasks into one platform, but one to-do list as well, rather than, having to juggle multiple boards, it just worked for me. So I do that. I have my trusty pad to-do list, like we all probably do, and a whiteboard was something I only recently installed, but that's been a game changer because I'm a very visual person as well. So if I don't have my laptop with me, or if I just want to just be a bit more free, I have my list on my whiteboard, and it's just having that mindset to strike through it. It's so satisfying, and it gives you that little shot of a burst of dopamine when you've finished a task. So those are obviously three productivity things, but tools like Canva I couldn't live without. That was something that in my younger days would have been an amazing thing to have. I'm so envious of the young marketeers of today. But yeah, that's been brilliant as well. I guess the AI it's almost a replacement of Google in some ways. So sometimes what I would have done historically before ChatGPT and those kinds of things would be Google stuff and read the documents or the pages that came back. So in effect, using the internet pretty much the same way, but I would just collect that differently. So now it's almost just a convenience tool for me, basically. Now it collects it in a way I can use it, so I don't have to spend the time trolling through the documents and the articles and finding the things. It's done for me. So I think what I tend to do with it is I put as much detail into ChatGPT, is the one I use, but as much detail as I can into it. And so where I've almost provided the entire thing and just said, neaten this up using my own words because I don't want the authenticity of my words to go. And ChatGPT can sometimes change the way you write things, and I don't like it sometimes. So I always put that little ending on in my words, reword it. And what I get back is just a better version of what I've already done, but the actual knowledge is there from me. So that's how I use it really. And I obviously use it for new industries that I don't really fully know. So if there's a new client, for example, I might just do a bit of mining for information. What's their potential client base? What could they have as a client base? That sort of thing. Tell me about the challenges and pain points they might have. And obviously, you've got to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt because you're not the expert to say, yes, that's true or not. But if you've got part of the way there, then it obviously guides the work that you do. I recently did notice that ChatGPT was going to give me loads of creative prompts as well and some actual Canva slides, and which is scary. You think, gosh, I am going to be out of a job if I don't watch myself. I suppose for me, the future of it is how do I safeguard my skills and what I bring that ChatGPT will never bring. That's a bit of an unknown still, so we'll have to remains to be seen with that, doesn't it? I think the client acquisition and retention is very much linked, and how you win the client in the first place is probably the reason why you either keep them long term or you don't. So one of the clients I'm thinking about is a defence client. So I worked in the defence industry for 9 years in a previous life, and this client came through my website. So they'd found me online. It was a local business, so my SEO was working, big tick, and contacted me for some help with mentoring a member of their team. And I remember vividly sitting there in the meeting, going through all the different discussions around marketing and things that they should and could be doing. And my background in defence, in the defence industry, made me more confident to speak knowledgeably about what we were saying and apply it as well. So I could actually say, I understand where you're coming from because I've been there. And they said, it's clear that you get us. And I think that's the game changer for me, is that when a client gets that you get them because you've understood them on a deeper level. I think that's what is the difference between one that you will do a project with and then they'll move on, or do a project with and keep on a longer term basis. And so I think that the key to that long term is having that real deep knowledge of the way they work, but also having an offer that works with a long-term plan as well. So in my business, I have websites, social media, SEO, graphic design, branding, all the stuff around marketing. But a branding project might be an in and an out, it's a done kind of whole package. So those are great for the sort of constant churn and little bits and bobs. But having a management offer of some kind is what helps you to retain the longer term stuff. So if you want to try and generate that constant flow of income, which, as a freelancer, you end up in the peaks and troughs if you rely on project work. But the management style thing does keep that sort of flow. On the flip side, on a negative side to that I found, and that might be just personally where I sit, is that marketers I need that constant churn of energy as well as new projects coming in. So management is great to a point where it's fresh, and if the client can help you keep it fresh as well. But when the clients start to lose that freshness, I find it's time to move them on as much as anything. It sounds a bit harsh maybe, but for them to get fresh ideas as well as you to get a fresh outlook as well. So I would say that, yeah, management being the key to keeping that consistency, but just watch out for the little creative boredom setting in. So a red flag for me would probably be, when a client comes to you and says, I could probably do this myself, but I know you could probably do it quicker. So you sit there thinking, yeah, great. So my 20 years experience and abilities count for nothing. And really all you want to do is be respected for being able to add massive value. So what you want is for them to say, you're amazing at this, and I know you could do a much better job than me, and give you that credibility. Because what it shows when they don't do that is that they don't really value the thing you bring. They think they can do it, so they don't value what they're almost buying from you. And that is really frustrating, and not somebody I really like working with, really. So pricing is one of the most challenging bits of being a freelancer. You kind of have to guess your value to that person, and you don't want to pitch too low, you don't want to pitch too high. You kind of need to find that sweet spot. So in the beginning, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just knew what I earned at my previous job, and I tried to work it around that. And what I found was that the mindset shift from being an employee to being a self-employed freelancer is totally disconnected, and you don't get it right most of the time. So your mind is going, all you do earn more than you could as an actual employee, but you know what? You still undervalue yourself. So I tried to base it around salary expectations, work out what that was as an hourly day, a day rate, what I wanted to earn and things like that. But then it's not really about that. It's about what's out there in the competitive landscape and what other people are charging. And you very quickly realize that you're undervaluing yourself massively. And I've seen it in other people as well that have come onto this later on, and that they're doing the same thing. But I suppose, in marketing, you talk about strategies for pricing. A sort of initial pricing, usually you do go in a bit low. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You need to get your foundations and your footing in the door. So being a bit cheaper, you get that confidence and you grow and you build and you get the demand, and then you can afford to just pop it up a bit and a bit and a bit. And before you realize it, you go, actually, I'm charging way more. And I'm now charging almost 3 times what I did at the beginning. And I probably could go higher. And there is a point where you've got to go, am I happy with the level I'm earning? Do I want more? Do I want, where am I at? And just judge that based on your circumstances and make the adjustments as and when. And I think I probably put my rates up. And, in terms of retaining or moving clients on, that is one way of shifting the balance a bit and put my rates up. And if a client chooses to stay with me, then you know that you're doing a good job. Probably could have charged them more late, like earlier, but if they've gone, you know the sweet spot, don't you? So I think you've got to play around with your pricing, or you won't really fully get the full value of what you're worth. I most definitely have had the feeling of imposter syndrome. In fact, just yesterday, I was just Googling just a bit of background research on rates for things and how much you charge. And I was looking at the levels for a graphic designer, and it said sort of beginner, intermediate, experience. And I was like, where am I in this? And like for me to even question just being at the top end of that was just that example of imposter syndrome getting in my way. So like just the ridiculousness of that, even in having to question it. And it comes out of seeing so much on social media, and everybody else is banging their own drum, and what you see is what they want you to see. And yeah, it's nonsense, really. I think you've got to stay in your own lane and remember that if you ever do feel the negative vibes coming in, just stay in your own lane. You do you, and don't worry about anyone else. But it's easier said than done. Some of my imposter syndrome comes from my school days. Being in a school environment and having to kind of speak your story in front of people, and the negativity I got back from that almost made me stop doing it and made me go inward. And so then putting myself in that environment as a professional, going networking and things like that, I almost reverted to that, reverted to school days and feeling like no one's going to listen to me. Like, who would possibly want to hear what I've got to say and value what I've got to say? So it kind of took me a while to go, no, bloody bugger it. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm 44 and I need to get this out of my brain that I am not a 14-year-old girl in school with issues. I am a 44-year-old woman. I am professional. I am awesome. But it really isn't easy. It isn't easy to do that on a regular basis. But, and the other thing, client feedback can really derail getting some negative feedback or some glimmer of a negative vibe. It does really, really hurt you. And when you're doing this as a living, you open yourself up to that on a frequent basis, and it can be really risky. But then on the flip side, the good feedback is 10 times more amazing to receive than you would normally as well. So it's the rough with the smooth. So handling things like scope creep or late payments and things like that, these things, unfortunately, I've learned from experience of not having things in the right place. And what I've realised is that you do need to safeguard yourself with regards to outlining exactly what you're going to deliver. So whether it's via email or a formal contract, it doesn't really matter, but make sure your deliverables are clearly communicated to the client. So they're under no illusion of what you said you're going to deliver for how much you said you're going to do it. That just basically protects you from any scope creep. So if they come back to you with extra bits and bobs, you could say, yeah, sure, just referring you back to what we said, and this is what the email was or whatever it was. So this is additional and this is going to cost this. So as long as you can keep track of what you said and you've got a visual reference to it that the client has seen, then you should be fairly safe from the scope creep. When it comes to payments and late payments and invoices and things like that, another way I've overcome that is to charge a bit upfront, or some people just blatantly charge upfront. That's fine too if you feel comfortable doing that. My way around is I do 50% deposit, 50% on completion. That feels like the right balance for me because it's just better for me. But and generally a new client, I will do the initial part of the work upfront and pay me upfront because you don't know them, you don't know how they're going to be. A lot of people will say great things at first, but then you find later that they're actually disorganized or just don't pay you on time or they don't have the cash flow or whatever the reason is. Not my problem, just pay me. But if you upfront it, part of it at least, then you don't feel like you're working for nothing. I'm going to get taken for a ride. So I do think that some element of upfront payment is a good idea as well. So so networking has always been a bit up and down for me. I kind of felt at first I couldn't imagine myself doing it. But fortunately, I suppose when I started in 2019, 2020, we all started networking online. So there was a degree of separation from the person. It was a little bit of a safety blanket. So I did cut my teeth, if you will, on the virtual side. So when we came back to real life and went out and met people, it was actually really easy. And I was like, this is great. I know all these people. But if you obviously don't have that introduction into networking, I think the important thing to realize when you do go is everyone else is scared as well. You sit in that room full of people and you assume everyone's got everything sorted in their minds. They know what they're going to say. Do you know what? They're sat there thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Oh my God, I'm shaking. Oh my God, my voice is trembling. And you're going to feel exactly the same as everyone else. If that's you, if that's the way you feel. If you're a great speaker and you're confident, then all power to you. But if you're a bit apprehensive, then I'm 100% guaranteeing you that someone in that room feels the same. So if you can remember that, then hopefully it won't be as overwhelming. So I really found my feet with networking, and I find that the referrals that come from it is very much worth the investment in the time. Um, it's a lot of ways it kind of connects with your social media activity as well, because you meet new people all the time if you go networking, and every one of those people you meet wants to connect with you on LinkedIn. So you've got another person to add to your connections and another set of eyeballs on your content. So if you're content creating for your marketing, then it kind of sits hand in hand with that, really. It works really well together. And also they're almost advocates and ambassadors for you. So they like and they share and they have your back on the platforms as well. So you find that people will interact with your social content that you've met networking. So that's a really good benefit. And the more people that you meet, the more chances are that you'll get those referred business opportunities. Um, I think last year or the year before, networking accounted for 70% of my leads. And it was, it's very evident that it was really successful in generating opportunities for me. What I was really keen to look at was what that translated into in terms of turnover. And it only represented about 20% of my turnover. So you've got to be careful that you're not a busy fool and that you're not spending all the time doing the proposals and the lead generation, and it translates into actual work at the end of it. So as long as you keep a bit of a healthy distance from that and make sure it's actually doing what you want it to do, then yeah, throw yourself in and I'm sure you'll find it successful. So the working from home thing has been a bit of a journey because as we've all kind of changed from, or as I personally changed from office life, going to the office for 20 years and then working from home, the novelty factor is, of course, great. We get to be at home and doing work in our PJs and things like that. But over the years, I've recognized that that's not actually a healthy mindset, or it doesn't generate a healthy mindset for me. And only recently I've really discovered that I'd work best in proximity of others. So at home I'm fine. On certain days I can deal with being alone. It just depends on the mood I'm in. But I have always thrived better in an environment, weirdly, like a Starbucks or something like that. I'm sat in a really quite noisy place, but you'd think, how can you concentrate? But it's almost just a background noise and it just stops me from being distracted. But really realize that being in a coffee shop environment, you get your little dopamine hits from the people around you, as opposed to going on social media or going checking an email or getting a text message. So you're more likely to chuck those to one side, and you can just lift your head up and watch some guy that's walked in the shop or whatever. So being around people in co-working spaces or coffee shops or whatever, I absolutely love that. I think it really I think you have to find the right workspace for your personal style. So whatever that looks like for you, you've got to try a few different things out, I think. And also having conversations with people. You can go a week, 2 weeks without really realizing you've not spoken to people. And I remember one day sitting talking for about an hour with another creative supplier, and I came off the phone feeling amazing and realised, oh, it's because I've not spoken to anyone. And a good chewing the fat for a good hour or whatever you need, just then ready to get on with your day and get on with your job. So yeah, make time for those things too. So, working nationally, internationally, it's not like something I've gone out to look for particularly, but naturally, I have attracted clients from overseas and America, Canada. Things are slightly different when you're dealing in those areas. So, firstly, there's charges with financial transactions. So, I've been stung a few times with those. And secondly, a thought around insurance cover. And I've got insurance cover for my business, but I was made to sort of think about the cover for this other country. Was it going to be valid across other boundaries? So just make sure that if you are going to engage with foreign clients, that you've got all your bases covered when it comes to insurances and your fees. Is probably around the way you handle your finances and the way you handle invoicing and that kind of thing. Um, it's really dependent on the person. Personally, creative, I'm not a process person and I'm definitely not a numbers person. So it was the thing that I kind of pushed to the back and focused on. Of course, I've created a brand. Of course, I created a website. That's easy. And you will gravitate to doing the thing that you feel most comfortable with. So bookkeeper business will probably smash that side of it, but will be rubbish at the branding. So whatever your skill set is, you will gravitate to, but try not to neglect the other bits. So I fluffed my financial situation for a while before I got a grip with some software and things like that. And I use Free Agent, part of the NatWest bank account I've got, and it's dead easy. But what it took a bit of time to really understand how that works, embedding it, getting the stuff in the background sorted so I could do my accounts properly. Um, so yeah, I would say getting that sorted because it saves a lot of stress. And then recently been in front of an accountant who was surprised that I'd saved my tax in a reserve account for later. And I was like, what do you mean? You're surprised? She said, you'll be absolutely flabbergasted how many people don't save their tax. And I just don't get that. I do not understand. It's not my money. It is the taxman's money. So why would you put that in your own? Mind blown. Anyway, I put money aside every invoice. I put a certain percentage aside to cover my tax bill, and it just means you don't have the stress at the end of the year when you have to pay it. So yeah, why would you put yourself under that pressure? That's my personal opinion anyway. So when you set out in the world of freelancing and coming from an industry side or a company that you've worked for, you really get faced with loads of people doing amazing things. And in an employed situation, you're almost sheltered from that and you don't realize how many amazing people there are in the world doing incredible things. And when you get confronted with that, it's inspiring and you realize that you can do more. And why wouldn't you? You've got to give it a try. There's so many people trying new things out and not just for profit either. There's lots of non-for-profit organizations and charities and people doing incredible work. And it really that's inspired me to recently think about what I can do as I'm getting older and as I'm being, in more experience, but what can I do to give back? I know it sounds cliche and a bit cringe, but genuinely there's so many people doing stuff that you don't have a clue about. And so it is bigger than you. It really is. Just get stuck in. That's the parting shot, really. Um, yeah.